Listen up, fam. I'm Isabel, pushing 70, and let me tell you, the best damn part of my life was built on a lie. 11 years back, my daughter, Lillian, straight up dumped her 7-year-old autistic son, Arian, on my doorstep in the headlights of her beat-up car. She was like, "Just for a week, Mom." That week never ended, obviously. When I thought we were in the clear, when Arian, this kid who barely spoke, went total tech genius and sold a software for a cool $5 million at age 14, that's when Lillian popped back up. She rolled in with a fancy lawyer and a stack of papers, claiming she'd been in the mix the whole time. I was freaking out, like we were about to lose everything. But Arian, my quiet kid, he just leaned over, those deep, calm eyes locked on mine, and he whispered, "Just let her talk." I knew right then the game was on, and whatever he was cooking up was way bigger than my panic. Before I dive into the drama, what went down that day and how my grandson low-key paved a new path for me, I gotta ask you to do one thing. If you believe a 70-year-old woman's best chapter is still ahead, if you think experience is the ultimate flex, then smash that subscribe button for the Never Too Old channel and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We're building a tribe of folks who know age ain't nothing but a number. Now, back to the messy truth. It was a chilly November evening, 2014. Smelled like a wet dog outside. Lillian stood there looking like she hadn't slept in a month. Next to her was Arian, 7 years old, clutching his little light blue backpack. His hair covered his eyes, and he was staring at the porch floor, rocking back and forth, heel to toe. His hands were clamped over his ears, even though it was quiet as a tomb. "Mom, I just need a minute," Lillian mumbled, dead tired. "Seriously, just for the weekend. I'll call you Sunday." My gut, the one that's seen 3 decades of 4th graders and their nonsense, told me she was full of it. That backpack was too light for a weekend trip. I didn't say squat, just opened the door wider. I looked at Arian. He was still rocking. "Lillian, wait." I started, but she was already ghosting toward her car. No hug, no kiss for Arian. She just dipped. I watched her taillights disappear down the street like a bad memory in a hurry. Arian kept rocking. I was an elementary school teacher for 30 years. I had a few kids on the spectrum, sure, but always with aides and specialists handling the heavy lifting. Standing there with my grandson, I realized I knew zilch about actually living with it. "Hey, kiddo," I said softly. "Want to come inside?" He didn't even twitch, just kept rocking, like a metronome in his own world. I picked up his bag, practically nothing in it. I kept the door open. After what felt like forever, Arian walked past me into the house, still covering his ears. The low hum of the refrigerator made him flinch. The heater clicked on. He jammed his hands tighter to his head. I shut the door as quietly as I could. He was already in the living room, crouched in the corner by the bookshelf. "You hungry?" I asked. Silence. "Nada? Thirsty?" He rocked faster. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a yellow plastic cup, the one I kept for his rare, short visits, maybe twice a year. Poured water, walked it over, and set it on the floor about an arm's length away. He stopped rocking, looked at the cup, and then went right back to his rhythm. That first night was a total train wreck. I made chicken nuggets and fries because Lillian had once mentioned he ate them. Arian took one look and turned away. "Tried pasta. Nope, tried a sandwich." He shoved the plate across the table. "What do you want to eat, sweetie?" I asked. He made a low humming sound in his throat and stared at the wall. I gave him crackers. He ate 3 bedtime? Disaster. Capital D. I tried to help him brush his teeth and he screamed. Not crying, but a raw, terrifying shriek, like I was physically hurting him. I backed off and he stopped, but he was shaking. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, we skip it tonight." I put him in the guest room, tucked the blanket around him the way I thought kids liked. He chucked it off. I tried again. He screamed. I left the blanket at the foot of the bed and scooted out. He didn't sleep. I could hear that same low hum all night on repeat. I didn't sleep either. Saturday morning I called Lillian. Straight to voicemail. I left a message. "Lillian, honey, call me back. I need his routines, his food." This is an emergency. She didn't call. I tried again Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night. Nothing. 1 week rolled into 2. I took Arian to the pediatrician. The doctor confirmed my suspicion. He's autistic, Ms. Harper. Has anyone talked to you about getting an evaluation done? His mother was supposed to handle that. The doctor nodded slowly. Well, you're on the clock now. I signed him up for therapy. Speech, occupational, behavioral. I learned he needed the exact same breakfast every single day. Scrambled eggs, toast cut corner to corner, nothing touching the plate. I learned the route to therapy had to be precise, or he'd have a meltdown in the car. I learned not to touch him unless he initiated it. I got really good at watching instead of doing. 2 weeks after he arrived, I found him at dawn in the living room. He was on the floor with a bin of Matchbox cars I'd bought, lining them up in a perfect row. But it wasn't random. He'd sorted them by color, but in a way that confused me at first. I sat on the couch and just watched. Red car, then one that was a smidge more orange, then one even more orange than the last, then yellow green. This gradient was so subtle I had to squint to see it. He'd organized them by shade perfectly. That's incredible, Arian, I said. He didn't look at me, but he kept going. December hit. Still no call from Lillian. I changed my approach. I stopped trying to force eye contact, stopped pushing him to chat. I just made sure everything was identical every single day. Same breakfast, same time, same shows. The only bedtime routine he finally tolerated, me saying goodnight from the doorway. He calmed down. Not happy, but less panicked. He'd sit in the living room while I read. He ate meals without flipping the plate. On Christmas Eve, I was baking sugar cookies. Arian didn't help, but he sat at the table and watched me cut shapes. The kitchen smelled like heaven, vanilla and butter. The phone rang. I grabbed it, heart thumping. Lillian. Mom. Her voice was flat, totally spent. Lillian. Thank God. When are you coming for him? He needs you. I need to know. I can't do this anymore, Mom. I froze. What? He's yours, I tried. God, I really tried, but I just can't. Her voice broke. I just can't. Lillian, wait. The line went dead. I called back. It rang and rang. Nothing. Voicemail. I stood there, phone in hand, the cookies burning up in the oven, smoke starting to curl. I shut the oven off, pulled out the black smoking tray. I sank onto the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet. Arian appeared in the doorway. He looked at me for a long time, longer than ever before. Then he walked to the counter, picked up the yellow cup I'd given him that first day, and brought it to me. He set it down beside me. I looked at the cup, looked at him. He walked back to the living room. I just sat there and bawled, next to a burnt cookie sheet and that stupid yellow plastic cup. The years after that were a blur. I kept Arian's world totally consistent. Same eggs and toast, same road everywhere, same routine. When it was consistent, he was okay. Maybe not giddy, but okay. When he was 9, he became obsessed with magnetic letters. He'd arrange them on the fridge for hours. Not to spell words, but patterns, groups, sequences that made zero sense to me. Then he started drawing symbols in cheap notebooks. Circles, lines, tick marks, tracking something only he understood. I asked his therapist, Dr. Jasmine, about it. He draws these marks everywhere. Is this bad? She shook her head. He's charting his world. It makes him feel safe. Let him, so I did. He filled notebook after notebook. By age 10, the symbols turned into letters. Then short words. Egg, toast, school, home. Simple stuff, but written in neat block letters. By 11, he was writing full sentences, recording times, what he ate, where we went. He learned to make eye contact, little flickers at first. He learned he could handle the grocery store if we went at the exact same time every week. He learned I wasn't going anywhere. One morning in the spring when he was 9, I was making breakfast. Eggs, toast, same old, same old. Arian sat at the table, writing. Why did Mom leave? I nearly dropped the spatula. I turned around. Arian was looking at his notebook, not me, but he had spoken. 4 years of mostly silence, then single words, and now this, a full sentence, a question. I sat down across from him. She said she couldn't handle it. He nodded once, wrote something in his notebook, and went back to staring at the page. I finished breakfast, put his plate down, and then went to the bathroom to cry where he couldn't hear me. He had spoken. He had asked the question I couldn't answer, but I told him the truth. That's all I had to give him. The truth. And eggs and toast every morning, and that yellow cup. It had to be enough. A year after Arian first spoke, the school called, September 2018. He was 11, starting 5th grade. I thought the worst was over. He was speaking in sentences, eating lunch in the cafeteria, even raising his hand in class. Progress. Then, Principal Mr. Rodriguez wanted him out. Ms. Harper, we need to discuss Arian's placement, he said on the phone. New teacher, Miss Chen, who seemed sweet at orientation. I was hopeful. What's the issue? I asked. Arian would be better served in our specialized classroom. The other students are moving at a different pace. I gripped the phone. He keeps up with the work. It's not academics, it's behavior. He doesn't join group activities. He won't make eye contact during circle time. He covered his ears during music class because it's too loud. He has sensory issues. Mr. Rodriguez, we have a program designed for kids like Arian. It would be less stress for everyone. Less stress for the teacher. That's what he meant. I want an IEP meeting, I said. This week. Silence. I'll have my secretary call you. I spent 3 days prepping, printed every report card, every therapy note, every bit of paperwork I'd saved. Arian's reading was off the charts. His math was 2 years ahead. The problem wasn't that he couldn't learn. The problem was that he wasn't normal. The meeting was a Friday afternoon in the conference room. 2 bright fluorescent lights humming like a headache. Mr. Rodriguez sat at the head of the table. Miss Chen, the school shrink, the special ed coordinator, all with their folders. I had one thick folder. Thank you for coming, Ms. Harper. We want what's best for Arian. So do I. Miss Chen spoke first. Soft voice, fake smile. Arian is sweet, but he struggles socially. He sits alone during group work. He refuses to participate. Does he do the work? I asked. She hesitated. Yes, but education isn't just worksheets. It's about collaboration. He's autistic. Collaboration is harder, but he's trying. The special ed coordinator, Ms. Patel, leaned in. Our resource room offers a smaller setting, fewer distractions. Students who understand his challenges. Students who can't keep up academically, I shot back. That's not Arian. Mr. Rodriguez used his principal voice, reasonable, patronizing. We understand you want Arian in a mainstream class, but we have to consider the needs of all students. Are you saying Arian is disruptive? I challenged. Not disruptive exactly. Then what's the beef? Ms. Patel opened her folder. Arian's social skills assessment shows significant delays. His IQ testing was inconclusive. He refused to finish several sections. Because they were timed, and that makes him anxious. His therapist documented that, which brings us back to the point. Mr. Rodriguez said, Arian needs support we can't provide in a regular classroom. I opened my folder, pulled out the first document. This is Arian's reading test from last month, 97%, 7th grade level. Next, math assessment, 100%, 5th grade material. I kept pulling papers, stacking them in front of Mr. Rodriguez. These are therapy notes showing his progress in speech, in emotional regulation, in sensory tolerance. He's come further in 4 years than anyone predicted, not because he's in some room with low expectations, but because people believed in him. Miss Chen looked uncomfortable. It's not about expectations. The hell it isn't. You want him somewhere else because he makes you uncomfortable, because he doesn't perform normal the way you want normal to look. The room went silent. Mr. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Ms. Harper, I get that you're stressed. But under IDEA, Arian has the right to the least restrictive environment. That means the mainstream class with supports, not segregation, because he's different. I shouldn't have used the word segregation, but I was fired up. We are not suggesting segregation, Ms. Patel said quickly. Just a more appropriate setting. Then put the supports in his current classroom. Noise-canceling headphones for music, extra time for transitions, a quiet spot if he gets overloaded. That's accommodation, not removal. They looked at each other. Mr. Rodriguez sighed. We'll draft an IEP with those accommodations, he finally conceded. But if Arian continues to struggle, he won't. I didn't actually know that, but I knew quitting wasn't an option. That evening, I spread all the meeting notes on the kitchen table, getting them organized into the binder. Color-coded tabs for medical, school, therapy, legal. My hands knew this drill from years in the classroom. Arian came in. He stood watching me work. What are you doing? He asked, making sure the school can't forget what you can do. He moved closer, looked at the papers. Can I help? I glanced at him. Sure. We worked together for an hour. I showed him my system. He studied it, then pointed to the therapy tab. These should be sorted by date, then by type. Speech separate from occupational, separate from behavioral. He was right. That was way cleaner. Show me, I said. He rearranged the whole section in 10 minutes, creating a system I never would have thought of. Logical, clean, and perfect. I watched him work, his hands moving fast, totally focused. He understood organization on a level that was pure genius. Pattern, structure, order. It came to him like breathing. That's really good, Arian, I said when he finished. He nodded. Didn't smile, but I could tell he was pleased. The next year, when Arian was 12, his therapist suggested a tablet for communication, something to type on when speaking was too much. I saved up and bought him one for his birthday. He had it mastered in a day. Within a week, he downloaded a scanning app and started photographing every page of his notebooks, making digital copies. He was methodical, preserving everything. Why are you doing that? I asked. So I don't lose it, he said, eyes glued to the screen. At parent therapy groups, the other moms would ask me for tips. How did I get Arian to cooperate? What was my secret? How did I stop the meltdowns? I don't handle him, I'd say. I listen to him. One woman, Sue, whose son was nonverbal, shook her head. But how do you stay so patient? I thought about it. I guess I stopped trying to make him someone else. I just try to figure out who he is. It wasn't profound. It was just the only thing that worked. Arian started noticing patterns everywhere. We'd be driving and he'd say, "The traffic light on 4th Street is messed up. It stays red 45 seconds longer than the others." I had no clue if he was right. At the grocery store, he'd spot a pricing error on the receipt. The apples were priced 3 cents higher than the shelf tag. He was right every damn time. That fall, at another parent-teacher conference, Mr. Rodriguez smiled at me, but his eyes were dead. In the car, Arian said, "He doesn't like me." What? No, honey. He was being nice. His face was wrong. The smile didn't match. What do you mean? When people really smile, the muscles around their eyes contract. His didn't. He was faking it. I drove in silence. Arian was 12, and he could read faces better than I could. By the time he turned 13 and started 7th grade, I felt like we had this. Then Miss Jones called me. "Ms. Harper, Arian corrected me in front of the whole class while I was teaching long division." Was he right? A long pause. That's not the point. That is exactly the point. Was he right? Yes. But he embarrassed me. He needs to know there's a time and a place. He's 13. He sees a mistake. He corrects it. That's his brain. Another conference. More paperwork. This time they wanted to label him oppositional defiant. I brought 6 months of Dr. Jasmine's notes showing Arian wasn't defiant. He was direct. He didn't understand that adults were always supposed to be right, even when they were wrong. They finally backed off. That night, Arian asked me at dinner, "Why do they want me to be different?" I put my fork down. "What do you mean?" "The teachers, the other kids. Everyone wants me to act like I'm not me. Because they're scared of people who see more than they do," I said finally. He thought about that, nodded, and went back to eating. A few weeks later, he asked if I had his birth certificate. "Why do you need that, sweetie?" "I want to see it. I found it." He studied it. Then he asked for his school enrollment papers, his social security card, anything with his name on it. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Is this about Lillian?" "I just want to see everything." "Make sure it's all there." I figured he was processing his past, trying to figure out his identity. I helped him scan everything into his tablet. Birth records, medical history, every legal document I owned. He saved them meticulously, backed them up, created folders with labels I didn't quite get. "What are you building, kid?" I asked once. "A system," he said, "so nothing gets lost." I thought he was coping with the past. I had no idea he was building an arsenal for the future. By the time Arian hit 14, the game had changed. Like, completely flipped the script. He wasn't just my quiet, meticulous kid anymore. He was a full-blown whiz kid, and his special interest had gone from organizing Matchbox cars to organizing the entire digital world. It started subtle, you know? He'd spend hours on his tablet, not playing dumb games, but coding. He taught himself Python and JavaScript just by reading open-source documentation. I didn't get it, not one bit. I knew chalkboards and composition notebooks. This was way over my pay grade. "Grandma, the school's attendance system is inefficient," he told me one night over our same old eggs and toast. "It adds 4.7 seconds of dead time per student every morning. It's a waste of processing cycles." "Well, honey," I chuckled, "it makes sure you're actually in the building." He didn't laugh. He never really got humor unless it was strictly factual. "I've built a better one. It uses a geofencing algorithm and an encrypted token system to verify presence instantly. It eliminates the need for manual input and saves the school secretary about 40 minutes a day." I blinked. You built a better attendance system?" "It's rudimentary. I need to iron out the SQL injection risks." He was 13, talking about SQL injection risks. I mean, come on, I didn't think much of it until a few months later, spring of 2021. He was deep into an online forum, a super secret one for young developers. They were talking about efficiency problems in small businesses. Arian had been watching me struggle with my small retirement investment portfolio. I'm talking like a measly $2,000, nothing major, trying to track the market and rebalance. He kept seeing me pull out my little calculator and my graph paper. He looked at my setup, my old school notebook and pencil, and shook his head. "Grandma, your manual tracking introduces latency and potential calculation errors." "It's how I keep it straight, kiddo," I argued. He went silent for a week. Then, one Saturday, he showed me a program he'd built. It was a clean interface, all calming blues and grays, the colors he liked. It was designed to track micro-market data, spot tiny inefficiencies, and rebalance a portfolio automatically, based on pattern recognition in historical trading logs. It wasn't about intuition. It was pure, unadulterated pattern. He called it apex logic. I watched it work with my measly savings. It was crazy. In 3 weeks, it turned a 2% loss into a 4% gain. Small numbers, but the math was flawless. It was fast. Too fast. "Arian, it's like having a supercomputer for money," I whispered. "It just removes human error," he explained, still focused on the screen. "Humans introduce variables that disrupt the pattern. My code eliminates those variables. I didn't tell anyone. It was just our thing. But word gets out in the digital world, apparently. A month later, one of the older developers from that secret forum contacted Arian directly. This guy, Mr. Kalin, was an executive at a mid-sized tech investment firm based out of Chicago. He wanted to chat, I was suspicious as hell. "No way, buddy. You are not talking to strangers on the internet." "He's offering to buy Apex Logic, Grandma," Arian stated, calm as a cucumber. "He says it solves a niche problem in automated portfolio rebalancing for smaller funds." We had a video call with Mr. Kalin. I sat right next to Arian, looking like a grumpy guard dog. Mr. Kalin was all suit and smiles, but he saw the genius in Arian's code. He made a proposal, a flat-out purchase of the software, the source code, and a non-disclosure agreement. Basically, they get the tech, and Arian gets paid and stays invisible. He offered $500,000, cold hard cash, for a code my 14-year-old grandson wrote in our basement. My jaw hit the floor. I looked at Arian. He just typed into the chat window, "I will accept $5.2 million and a 0.5% royalty on all future profits for 5 years. Mr. Kalin's smile vanished. $5.2 million? That's excessive for a beta product developed by— "It is not beta," Arian interrupted, his voice steady, devoid of emotion. "It is 99.8% efficient in backtesting, outperforming industry standards by 18%. The royalty is for continued maintenance and updates, which your team will require." I nearly fainted. This kid was negotiating like a CEO. He was right, though. His system was a gem. After a few tense minutes, Mr. Kalin caved. He couldn't risk the code falling into a competitor's hands. The final deal, $5.2 million for the code, deposited into a trust, and a small royalty. All handled by Mr. Kalin's legal team, with me as Arian's legal guardian, of course. It was insane. We signed the papers. My grandson was rich, but more importantly, he was validated. He was smart. That's when the media got wind of it. Mr. Kalin, bless his capitalist heart, needed some good press. He leaked the story, but sanitized it. Autistic teen prodigy sells software for millions. The news went viral. Suddenly, our quiet, consistent life was front-page news. For a week, it was a blast. We had TV crews outside, neighbors bringing casseroles. Arian didn't care for the attention. It overwhelmed his senses. But he tolerated it because the money meant security and consistency, his two favorite things. And then, exactly 2 weeks after the news broke, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, and my blood ran cold. Standing there was Lillian. My daughter, my baby girl whom I hadn't seen or heard from in 7 years. She looked expensive. Gone were the tired, drawn features from the night she left. She was dressed in a sharp suit, hair perfectly styled. She had that calculated, "I belong here" look rich people have. And next to her, towering over both of us, was a man in an even sharper suit, carrying a thick leather briefcase. A lawyer, no doubt. I opened the door maybe an inch. My hands were shaking. "Mom?" Lillian said, her voice smooth, totally unlike the broken whisper from before. "It's been a long time." 7 years, I corrected her, my voice low and dangerous. 7 years, Lillian. You left your son and never looked back. She fluttered her hands, that dramatic gesture she always used when she was trying to dodge accountability. "That's not entirely fair, Mom. Things were complicated. But that's all in the past. I'm here for Arian." The lawyer stepped forward. He had a face like he sucked lemons for a living. "Ms. Harper, I'm Mr. Vance. We represent Ms. Lillian Croft, Arian's biological mother and legal guardian." My laugh was harsh, just a dry, pathetic sound. "Legal guardian?" She abandoned him. "Get off my property." Mr. Vance didn't flinch. He just held up a stack of documents, crisp, official, intimidating. "These documents, Ms. Harper, tell a different story. They detail Ms. Croft's ongoing involvement in her son's life since 2014. Financial contributions, court-sanctioned visitation logs, and therapy session notes where Ms. Croft was allegedly present." I grabbed the papers and flipped through them, my heart hammering like a drum in my chest. Visitation log, April 2015, lunch with mother at park. Financial record, quarterly child support payments to Ms. Harper. 2015-2021. Custody modification request, filed 2016, requesting temporary placement with maternal grandmother due to mother's extensive business travel. It was all lies. Total BS. I never got a penny from her. She never showed up for a single therapy session. She never called. But the documents, they looked real. Signatures, official stamps, dates. My own name was forged on some of the receipts. This is forged, I spat out, holding up a paper with a fake signature. Every single word is a damn lie. Lillian's face was stone cold. Mom, please don't make a scene. I was dealing with severe, undocumented personal challenges and simply chose to funnel support through discreet channels to protect my son's privacy. Now that he's successful, I'm here to resume my responsibilities and manage his affairs. Manage his affairs. Manage the $5.2 million she meant. The audacity. It was a straight-up heist. I slammed the door in their faces and went straight to the phone. Called my lawyer, Ms. Clara Reed, a no-nonsense woman who handles wills and deeds for my senior center friends. She came over right away, wearing her comfy cardigan and carrying her sensible briefcase. She read the documents, her face getting tighter with every page. She put them down on the table, next to Arian's perpetual yellow cup. Isabel, she said, her voice grave, these look legitimate. The quality of the forgery is top-notch. She's got a lawyer who knows what he's doing. Unless we can definitively prove these are fabricated, and I mean, forensic proof that will stand up in court against these official-looking notary stamps, we could be in deep trouble. I felt the panic rise up my throat, a sick, dizzying wave. Losing Arian, losing the life we'd built, losing his future to this greedy, manipulative woman. What do we do, Clara? We can't lose this. He's safe here. She's just after the money. Clara sighed, looking defeated. The fact that she's the biological mother and she has documentation, even fake documentation showing sustained involvement, gives her a strong position. The court will see a prodigy with a large sum of money and a biological parent ready to step up and manage it, citing an aging, potentially unfit grandmother. We need solid proof, Isabel. The clock is ticking. I put my head in my hands. I was 68 years old, exhausted, terrified, and up against a well-funded, ice-cold legal attack orchestrated by my own daughter. I felt the tears coming, the kind that taste like defeat. And then I felt a gentle, light touch on my shoulder, Arian. He was standing there, calm as anything, wearing his noise-canceling headphones around his neck. He looked at the fake documents, then at my face, then at Clara's worried expression. He leaned in, his voice barely a whisper, clear and steady, like the perfect rhythm of his code. Let her talk. I lifted my head and stared at him. Arian, what? Let her keep lying? We're about to lose everything. He sat down across from me, his eyes locked on the documents. He didn't look scared. He looked calculating, like he was analyzing a flawed piece of code. Lies are data points, Grandma, he said, picking up the forged visitation log. She is creating a pattern. We just need to wait for the pattern to become predictable. I have a system. I looked at my 13-year-old grandson, the boy who couldn't stand a misplaced fork, the genius who saw the world as a series of structures. He had scanned and backed up every single document in our lives over the last 7 years. The truth, the real truth. I realized then that my fight wasn't against a lawyer and a greedy daughter. It was a battle of data and logic, and I had the best weapon in the world sitting right across from me. I looked at Clara. We listen to the boy. We let them file their papers. And we wait. I had no idea what he had planned, but I knew my time for being polite, for being the sweet grandmother, was over. My daughter wanted a war for millions? She was about to meet the system my grandson built. I just had to trust the process, and the old-school rage bubbling up in my gut. Lillian was in for a rude awakening, a shocker that would make her jaw drop. I wasn't just Isabel anymore. I was a protector, and protectors fight dirty. So we followed the kid's advice. Let her talk. It felt completely bonkers, like trusting a toddler to pilot a jet. But this wasn't just any kid. This was Arian, the king of logic. I told Clara, my lawyer, to chill out and play the long game. That woman looked like I'd just told her to sell all her sensible shoes, but she trusted me. She'd known me long enough to know when I was ready to throw down. Lillian and her slick lawyer, Mr. Vance, filed their initial motion in court that Tuesday. The paperwork claimed full custody and control over Arian's financial assets, that $5.2 million trust. They were moving fast, like total hustlers, the nerve of that woman. She hadn't even asked Arian how he was doing. It was all my son's estate, my parental rights, and my extensive involvement. I swear, reading those documents made my blood pressure spike like a rocket launch. "Grandma, observe the pattern," Arian instructed me that week. We were sitting at the kitchen table. He was on his tablet, tracking every move Lillian made, not with some fancy software, but with a color-coded spreadsheet he'd built in Google Sheets. "Pure organized data. What pattern?" I grumbled, slamming down the latest piece of fake evidence, a photocopy of a supposed Christmas card from 2017. "The pattern is greed. She wants the cash, correct. But how does she justify the transfer of assets?" he asked, tapping the screen. "She is building a narrative of sustained, secret maternal support. Note the consistency. Every fabricated document involves a verifiable public location, but with no proof of my attendance. Lunch at the Oakwood Diner, park visit at Central Park North, a payment receipt from the city bookstore. These are all places with high public traffic, but low security cameras. She's smart," I conceded, pouring myself some much-needed black coffee. "She is predictable," Arian corrected me, his tone absolute. "She is building a paper trail that should exist but doesn't, assuming we have no counterproof. Her current defense relies on the idea that an elderly woman cannot challenge legal documentation, especially against a lawyer of Mr. Vance's caliber." I looked at him, really looked at him. My heart swelled with a fierce pride. "So what's your system, buddy?" "We allow her to expand the data set," he said, pushing a diagram across the table. It was a flowchart, obviously. "We wait for the custodial review interview. The court will request a home visit and separate interviews with the mother, the child, and the grandmother. That's where the narrative of consistency must hold up. She has built a paper lie. She must now build a verbal lie based on her paper lie. The more details she provides under oath, the greater the statistical chance of an anomaly that contradicts our documented reality." "You want her to dig her own grave," I realized, a slow smile spreading across my face. "That's my boy." We spent the next 2 weeks prepping. Not practicing what to say. We were telling the truth, which is easy, but organizing the evidence of the truth. Arian made me pull out the big 3-ring binder that now took up half the counter. He went through it page by page. He reorganized the medical section into a timeline showing every single doctor's visit, every specialized therapy appointment, and crucially, every copay receipt paid exclusively by me. He created a separate digital file with time-stamped photos of the infamous yellow cup, the exact route to his therapist's office, with corresponding traffic camera stills he'd somehow accessed, and even a log of every TV show he watched on Friday nights. "The consistency must be overwhelming, Grandma," he explained. "My life here has no outliers. Her narrative, being fabricated, will be full of statistical outliers." He even prepared me for the interview. "When they ask about my favorite color, state that my preference is a specific wavelength of blue, 470 nanometers, because it provides optimal visual contrast in low-light conditions." "Not just blue," I had to laugh. "Okay, Captain Logic. 470 nanometers it is." Finally, the day of the custodial review arrived. It was set for a Monday morning. The court-appointed social worker, a nice but clearly harried woman named Ms. Olivia, arrived first for the home visit. She toured the house. She saw the kitchen, spotless but with the familiar yellow cup on the counter. She saw Arian's room, meticulously organized, with the stacks of his old symbol-filled notebooks on the shelf. She looked at the giant 3-ring binder on the kitchen island. "This is very organized, Ms. Harper," Ms. Olivia said, sounding impressed, maybe a little wary. "It's the only way Arian functions," I said simply. "Consistency is his foundation. He built the filing system himself." She spent an hour with me, then an hour with Arian. He was quiet. But when asked a specific question, he gave a precise, fact-based answer that stunned her. Arian, what do you usually have for breakfast? Scrambled chicken eggs. 2 slices of white toast, prepared in a digital toaster, cut at a 45 circ angle, with no side of butter applied to the plate surface. This routine has been maintained since 2014, minus 1 instance of avocado toast on October 14, 2019, due to an egg shortage. Ms. Olivia blinked. She wrote furiously in her notebook. Then she asked the critical question, Arian, can you tell me about the last time you saw your mother, Lillian? Arian didn't even look up from the Rubik's Cube he was solving. November 14, 2014, at 5:17 p.m. She deposited me at this residence and left in a 2012 Subaru Outback. The headlights were slightly misaligned, no emotion, just pure, clean data. When Ms. Olivia left, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had established the baseline of our reality. The next day was Lillian's interview at Mr. Vance's office. This was Arian's moment. He had instructed me to ask Clara to send Mr. Vance a certified letter just before the interview, stating we would not be challenging the veracity of the visitation logs or the financial records at this time, but we did require clarification on a few specific details. Clara thought I was nuts, but she did it. We were essentially telling them, yeah, we buy your lies. Give us more. That afternoon, Clara called me. She sounded hyped. Isabel, I have the full transcript of Lillian's interview. You won't believe it. She went all in. Apparently, because she thought her paper trail was solid and we weren't challenging it, Lillian felt safe. She had to convince Ms. Olivia that she was a loving, present mother who had simply been discreet. Ms. Olivia, following the court's protocol, used the forged documents as her reference. Ms. Olivia. Ms. Croft, the documents state you took Arian to the Oakwood Diner in April 2015. Can you tell me what you discussed? Lillian. Oh, yes. That was a lovely day. He was having a tough time adjusting to his new school schedule, and we talked about making new friends. He loves chicken fingers, so we had those. Ms. Olivia. Did he eat the chicken fingers? Lillian. Of course. He was a little shy, but he ate every bite. He loved the crispy coating. I snorted when Clara read that part. Loves chicken fingers. The kid hadn't touched a chicken nugget in 7 years. The lies got better. Ms. Olivia. In 2019, you sent him the book, The Adventures of Captain Cosmo. What was his reaction? A book Lillian claimed to have bought at the city bookstore in a fake receipt. Lillian. He was thrilled. I remember him telling me how much he loved the blue space helmet on the cover. We talked about astronomy for a good hour on the phone that night. He's very bright, you know. I checked Arian's log. That week in 2019, he was focused on the unified field theory and was entirely nonverbal for 2 days due to a plumbing noise next door. No mention of Captain Cosmo, but the final lie was the best. Ms. Olivia. Ms. Croft. Arian's grandmother stated that his consistency is built around a daily ritual of eating scrambled eggs and toast. Do you recall that meal? Lillian, thinking she was the perfect mom, replied, Absolutely. That's my recipe. I taught Mom that. I remember every morning I'd put a little smiley face on his toast with strawberry jam. He loved those smiley faces. I dropped my own coffee mug. The sound was deafening. Smiley faces with strawberry jam. That kid would have had a grade 10 meltdown if something sticky and red was drawn on his toast. He needed it cut at a 45 circ angle. I called Arian, who was in the basement with his computers. Did you hear that, buddy? Strawberry jam smiley faces. She's totally exposed herself. Arian's voice was the calmest I'd ever heard it. Affirmative, Grandma. The jam smiley face is a $100% contradiction of known data points related to my sensory profile and dietary restrictions since age 7. It is the quantifiable anomaly we required. The system is ready. I looked at Clara, who was now grinning like a shark. Ready for what, Isabel? We have her contradicting her alleged intimate knowledge of her son, but that doesn't make the forged documents disappear. My smile matched hers. No, but it gives us the leverage. Lillian thinks she's winning because we didn't challenge her documents. Now we challenge the source of the documents. It's time to show Mr. Vance and Lillian that the old lady and the autistic kid are not to be messed with. It's time to launch the counterattack. What's the counterattack, Isabel? Clara asked, her eyes shining with professional excitement. It's simple, Clara, I said, the rage in my stomach finally settling into a cold, hard determination. Lillian wanted a sophisticated legal battle over millions. My grandson built a system that tracks fraud. She wanted a paper trail of lies? We're going to use her greed to expose the entire operation. It's time to bring in the big guns. The real tech genius. I was 70 years old, and for the first time in a long time, I felt 25. Lillian thought she was dealing with a sweet, forgetful grandma. She was about to meet a woman who would protect her family with the ferocity of a mama bear and the strategic precision of a tech prodigy. The next phase was going to be ugly, and I was ready to get my hands dirty. My revenge was going to be logical, systematic, and best of all, perfectly legal. After that whole ridiculous strawberry jam smiley face debacle, I knew we had Lillian cornered. It was the perfect, quantifiable anomaly. She'd tried to prove her motherly love with a detail so phony, it flew straight in the face of Arian's documented reality. It was my cue. Time to stop playing defense and unleash the beast. Arian's system. I called Clara, who was already jazzed. Clara, ditch the sweet talk. We're going to court, and we're not just arguing custody anymore. We're arguing fraud. Whoa, Isabel, hold your horses, Clara cautioned. Fraud is a high bar. We have her saying the boy likes jam, not proof she forged documents filed in a county clerk's office. We will, I said, my voice ice cold. Lillian's mistake wasn't the jam. It was thinking she could out-engineer her own son. Arian has a system for this, Clara. He called it Operation Clean Slate. The plan was a masterclass in quiet technical revenge. It started with the very first document Mr. Vance had shown me, the forged 2016 custody modification request. Arian had spent a week in the basement, tapping away. He didn't use any fancy hacker tools. He used the same logic he used to spot stock market patterns. He took the high-resolution scans of the forged documents, specifically focusing on the supposed notary stamps and the legal file numbers. The notary stamp is key. Grandma, he explained one morning, showing me his screen. It was a macro analysis of the notary's signature and seal. Lillian's documents use a notary named Alara Jones. Notary ID 19875A. I have cross-referenced every legal filing in this county using that ID from 2016 to the present. I stared at the screen. Thousands of entries. And? The forgery is excellent, but they made a rookie error. A notary public seal should be a fixed depth impression stamp. Over 7 years, the rubber or metal in that stamp degrades, creating minute measurable microfractures in the impression, Arian stated, pointing to a graph that looked like a jagged EKG reading. Lillian's documents from 2016, 2018, and 2020 all show the exact same pristine impression, a perfect digital replication of the original seal's template. The microfractures that should appear over time are absent. It's statistically impossible. I felt a genuine chill. This kid was using the degradation of a rubber stamp as forensic proof. So, the notary stamp itself is fake. I breathed. Affirmative, Arian said. Furthermore, the notary, Alara Jones, has a recorded work address on Main Street. The notarization date on the 2016 document, the custody modification, coincides with a Tuesday when Ms. Jones's personal filing system shows she was on a registered 2-week vacation in the Bahamas. I verified this by cross-referencing her social media geotags from that week. She posted a selfie next to a palm tree on the exact day the document was notarized here. You checked the notary's vacation photos? I nearly choked on my tea. Data is data, Grandma, and the palm tree is an outlier. I handed all of this, the physical and the digital reports, to Clara. She read Arian's detailed analysis, the heat maps showing the statistical impossibility of the stamp impressions, the public records, the vacation photos. Her jaw was practically unhinged. Isabel, she whispered, this is insane. This isn't just proof. This is a forensic takedown. We can't just hand this over to the court, though. We need to use it to corner them. I agree, I said, finally feeling that cold, hard vengeance settle in my bones. We file a countersuit. We accuse them of willful fraud and calculated deceit and request an immediate discovery hearing. We want Mr. Vance's entire file and we want Lillian on the stand. We went back to court. Clara filed the countersuit, complete with a terrifyingly detailed affidavit from a forensic document analyst, who was actually Aryan, using my name as a shield. Mr. Vance was blindsided. He'd expected the sweet grandma to roll over. He did not expect a countersuit based on the microfractures of a rubber stamp. The discovery hearing was scheduled for the next week. This was it, the showdown. I was dressed in my most sensible yet intimidating navy suit. Aryan was with me, quiet, wearing his favorite blue shirt, the 470 text-enamed blue, I'm sure. Lillian and Mr. Vance looked confident, but there was a flicker of panic in Vance's eyes when he realized we had come out swinging. Clara started with the basics, grilling Lillian about her fabricated life as a supportive mother. She hammered the strawberry jam lie. Ms. Croft, you testified that you put smiley faces on Aryan's toast with strawberry jam every morning. Yet his medical records show a high sensitivity to artificial food coloring and a strong aversion to sticky, non-uniform textures. Was this part of your discreet support? Forcing your 7-year-old autistic son to eat a known irritant? Lillian stammered. No, I meant with a butter knife, no jam. It was a simple error of memory. An error of memory about a supposed daily ritual with your son? Let's move on to the more critical errors then, Clara shot back, dropping the mic. Then came the main event. Clara put up a projection of Aryan's stamp analysis. She didn't use Aryan's complicated graphs. She used simple common sense. Mr. Vance, your client filed a custody modification request in 2016, notarized by Ms. Alara Jones. Can you confirm this document is legitimate and was notarized on the date listed? Mr. Vance, sweating a little, confirmed it. Yes, entirely legitimate. Clara then projected the high-res image of the pristine notary stamp impression alongside an image of Ms. Jones's actual degraded stamp from 2020 on a separate, non-related filing. We have forensic evidence that the impression on your document is an exact digital clone of the original notary seal, lacking any of the typical wear and tear microfractures that would have been present on the physical stamp after 6 months of use. In other words, this stamp was digitally fabricated and then applied, Clara stated, her voice booming. The courtroom gasped. Mr. Vance was on his feet, furious. Objection. This is baseless technical jargon. Where is your so-called expert? Our expert's report is filed with the court counsel. Furthermore, Clara continued, ignoring the sputtering lawyer, we have certified records showing that the notary, Ms. Alara Jones, was vacationing in the Bahamas on the precise date of notarization. The court has been presented with fabricated, fraudulent documents. Lillian went pale. She looked at Mr. Vance, and for the first time she looked genuinely terrified, not just calculating. She had been caught red-handed, not by a lawyer, but by the cold, unforgiving nature of data. Mr. Vance asked for a recess. He knew the jig was up. He'd signed off on a massive fraud. During the recess, as I waited outside the courtroom, Mr. Vance came storming up to me, pulling Lillian along behind him. Ms. Harper? What in the hell is your game? Your expert is clearly some lunatic. This is frivolous. Frivolous? I asked, my voice deadly calm. I looked him dead in the eye, then at my daughter, who wouldn't meet my gaze. You filed forged documents to steal millions from an autistic boy who you abandoned. That's not frivolous, Mr. Vance. That's a federal crime. I leaned in close. Lillian, do you remember how I taught you that every lie, no matter how small, leaves a mark? You should have listened. Now, your little lie about a vacationing notary is going to cost you everything. Lillian finally looked up, her eyes wide with fear. Mom, please. This is a misunderstanding. I just want what's best for Aryan's future. Best for your future, I corrected her. You thought you could buy a clean slate with a fancy lawyer and a photocopier? You forgot one thing. My grandson archives everything. I signaled to Clara, who was already calling a number on her phone. "We're not settling, Mr. Vance. We're filing criminal charges. Fraud, forgery, and attempted grand larceny. You have until the court reconvenes to withdraw every single filing, relinquish any claim to Arian's assets, and pay our legal fees. Or the FBI gets the entire forensic report, complete with the notary's social media photos." I had no idea if the FBI cared, but Mr. Vance, the slick, polished hustler, certainly didn't want to find out. His career was on the line. He didn't even argue. He grabbed Lillian's arm, his own temper now aimed at her. "You set me up for a federal case, Lillian. We are withdrawing now." Lillian started to cry, real tears this time. "Mom, you can't do this to me. I'm your daughter." I just looked at her, my face empty of the love I used to feel. "You stopped being my daughter the day you left a 7-year-old boy who covers his ears at the sound of the refrigerator. You wanted the money. You don't get the money, and you don't get the boy. Game over." The recess ended, and Mr. Vance, his face gray, informed the judge that his client was voluntarily withdrawing all motions with prejudice. The judge looked confused but accepted the withdrawal. We won. It was a clean, brutal victory of logic over greed, but the win wasn't enough for me. Lillian had hurt my boy and tried to destroy our safe world. She needed a lesson that stuck, a permanent consequence that was as tidy and organized as one of Arian's spreadsheets. Winning the case was step 1. Getting true, systematic revenge was step 2. I looked at Arian, who was now putting his tablet back in its case. "Phase 1 complete, Grandma," he murmured. "Now we initiate the final sequence." I smiled, a real cold smile. "The one where she loses everything?" "Affirmative. The data must be balanced." Winning that court battle felt good, like finally scrubbing off years of sticky residue. But it wasn't the end. Lillian, my own flesh and blood, had tried to steal my grandson's security, millions earned by his unique, beautiful mind. Winning emotion was one thing. Giving her a consequence that resonated with Arian's perfect sense of justice and balance was another. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about data balancing the scales. "Grandma, the legal outcome is 100% satisfactory, but the emotional vector remains unstable," Arian noted that evening. He was back in his basement command center, which was really just a folding table with 3 monitors and his tablet. Lillian's motive was financial security, which she attempted to achieve through fraudulent means. For true resolution, the fraudulent motive must be neutralized. Translation: she wanted the money, so she had to lose her own money. And I was absolutely on board. "What's the system for that, buddy?" I asked, pouring him a glass of milk and keeping my own coffee black. Lillian's current income source is relevant. She works as a high-level marketing executive for a mid-sized e-commerce company, Zenith Commerce. Her entire professional persona, and therefore her financial stability, is built on image and public trust, Arian explained. Pulling up a series of Lillian's professional profile photos, she looked utterly fake, all crisp suits and forced smiles. She is the visible face of their compliance and brand integrity. So we hit her where it hurts her brand? I smiled. Now we were chilling. Affirmative. The fraud committed against us, the forgery and the deceit, can be framed as a systemic pattern of behavioral dishonesty. We simply need to make the data public and connect it to her professional role, he stated, as if he were discussing laundry. The beautiful part of the plan was how clean and totally passive it was. We weren't going to leak information or hack anything. We were just going to make public information accessible and organize the data into a damning narrative. Arian began by creating a meticulously documented, anonymous website. It was clean, simple, and looked like a public service announcement. He titled it, The Croft-Harper Integrity Index. The first section contained the irrefutable facts from the court case, the fraudulent filings, high-resolution comparison images of the digitally fabricated notary seal on the 2016-2020 documents versus the authentic, time-degraded seal. He added a simple explanation. The statistical impossibility of a perfect stamp replication over a 4-year period. The contradictory testimony. The direct quotes from Lillian's court transcript, like the infamous strawberry jam smiley, face, next to Arian's documented dietary restriction, log, and the school's IEP notes regarding his sensory profile. A classic A/B test of truth versus lie. The vacation anomaly. A copy of the court-filed deposition showing the notary, Ms. Alara Jones, was confirmed to be in the Bahamas via public records and dated social media posts, directly contradicting the notarization date on the key document. "This is all public record, Grandma," Arian reminded me. "The court filings, the notary's public status, the business records. We are simply aggregating the scattered data." I was so proud, I nearly cried. "This is genius, kiddo. Pure genius. However, the data has no impact unless it is seen by the target audience," he continued, completely focused. Lillian's target audience is Zenith Commerce's board of directors and its key B2B partners, who rely on her reputation. This is where the second phase, the dissemination, kicked in. Arian used his coding skills not to breach security, but to execute surgical digital targeting. He created a simple, professional-looking email that contained a link to the Croft-Harper Integrity Index. He didn't send it to the general public. He used his access to public corporate registration databases and professional networking sites to find the exact email addresses for the entire Zenith Commerce Board of Directors, the Chief Compliance Officer and the VP of Human Resources at Zenith, the senior partners at the 3 largest venture capital firms that heavily fund Zenith Commerce. He scheduled the emails to send at 8:00 a.m. on a Tuesday, prime business time. "Why Tuesday?" I asked. "Highest recorded email engagement rate in a professional environment," he replied instantly, "and sufficient time for the board to meet before the market opens on Wednesday." I watched him set the timer. The anticipation was intense. This was the moment where my daughter's professional world, built on a foundation of ruthless ambition, was about to meet the crushing weight of her personal dishonesty. The next morning, I was sipping my coffee, watching the news. Arian was downstairs. The emails had gone out. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang. It was Clara. "Isabel, did you see the newsfeed? Zenith Commerce's stock is taking a hit," she exclaimed. I looked up the ticker. It was down 4%, a small dip but noticeable. "What's happening?" I asked innocently. "The chatter on the financial subreddits is crazy. There's an anonymous leak, a website, detailing a massive coordinated fraud attempt by a senior executive, Lillian Croft, to acquire millions under false pretenses. The site is brilliant, Isabel. It lays everything out like a business prospectus for dishonesty. It's totally viral in the compliance world. The board of directors, the C-suite, the VCs, they weren't seeing grandma versus daughter. They were seeing senior executive, Lillian Croft, demonstrates a quantifiable, pattern-based capacity for systemic fraud and deceit, as evidenced by public court records. A few hours later, the official news broke. Zenith Commerce's stock briefly halted trading. The headline that hit the wire was delicious. Zenith Commerce executive Lillian Croft placed on immediate leave following allegations of widespread fraud and forgery. They hadn't even named the victim, but they didn't need to. The pattern of deceit was enough to destroy her professional integrity. Lillian's entire identity as a trustworthy, compliant executive was incinerated by the logical presentation of her own lies. She was toxic data. I didn't hear from Lillian, of course. She was too busy dealing with the fallout, the internal investigation, and the massive blow to her reputation that was now permanently indexed on Arian's website. The final, satisfying piece of the puzzle came the following Friday. Clara called me one last time. "Isabel, Lillian was terminated. Restructuring. But here's the kicker. Mr. Vance is suing her for legal fees related to the fraudulent filings and is cooperating with the Bar Association's inquiry into his initial handling of the case. She's ruined, professionally and legally. She's got no job, a mountain of legal debt, and zero credibility." I put the phone down, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and cold finality. There was no joy, no glee, just completion. The books were balanced. Lillian's life was now as disordered and chaotic as she had left Arian's 7 years ago. I went downstairs. Arian was still working, his headphones on. "Grandma," he said, turning to me, his face impassive. The integrity index achieved 100% of its neutralization goal. The system is now offline. The data has been indexed, and the variable, Lillian, has been removed from the environment. I walked over to him, put my arms around his shoulders, and gave him a tight squeeze. He tolerated it for a moment before giving me a subtle, nonverbal nudge. "Thank you, sweetie," I murmured. "You saved us. And you taught your old grandma how to fight a modern war." My revenge wasn't loud or messy. It was logical, irrefutable, and permanent. A lesson delivered by the quietest, most brilliant mind I knew. But there was one last piece of the story. Something Lillian left behind that Arian had also filed away. A final, crucial piece of data that I didn't even realize we had. And I knew exactly how I was going to use it to secure our safety forever. Lillian was cooked. Fired from Zenith Commerce, sued by her own lawyer, and with her professional reputation reduced to a few damning, hyperlinked public records. It was the perfect, logical revenge that Arian's system had delivered. She'd tried to weaponize paper. We countered with organized, verifiable data. The balance was restored. But for me, Isabel Harper, the threat wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the security of our sanctuary, the quiet, predictable world Arian needed to thrive. Lillian was now jobless, broke, and angry. That kind of instability was dangerous. She was a rogue variable, and I needed to ensure she couldn't disrupt our system ever again. "Grandma, the current risk assessment indicates a 43% probability of attempted personal contact within the next 6 weeks, driven by financial distress and emotional instability," Arian stated that Saturday. He was making his usual toast, cut at the perfect 45 Rosenbauer circed angle. "So she's going to show up and cause a scene," I summarized. "Affirmative. The solution is to introduce a permanent legal barrier that eliminates the possibility of physical and financial proximity." And that's when Arian dropped the final, hidden piece of data, the one he'd scanned and cataloged that very first week she left him, the one I hadn't even looked at closely. The contents of his small, light blue backpack. The key is in the original data file. "Lillian Baggage 2014, Arian said, pulling up an old scan on his monitor. "She told you the backpack was for the weekend. The contents contradict that statement." I looked at the scan. A change of clothes, a stuffed animal, and a small sealed Ziploc bag. I remember that bag. It was full of pills? Correct. They are prescription mood stabilizers. Lithium carbonate. Dosage, 450 text, mg. Arian read from the label. The prescription was dated October 2014, 1 month before she abandoned me here. The quantity, by my count, was exactly $90 pills, a 30-day supply. There are precisely $79 pills remaining in the scan. My mind raced. She left you here on November 14th, 2014. A 30-day supply started in mid-October. That means she had barely 11 days of medication left when she dropped you off. She didn't leave you for a weekend, Arian. She left because she had a serious, documented mental health crisis and had run out of time. It was a crucial, devastating fact. She didn't just abandon a child. She abandoned her own necessary medical treatment to escape a situation she couldn't handle. The backpack wasn't just packed for a child. It was packed for an exit. This is proof of willful desertion due to a documented health crisis that was hidden from the caregiver, I whispered. That changes everything, Arian. The original court documents only showed a withdrawal from the case, not a final judgment on the abandonment. Lillian still had some nebulous parental rights. I called Clara immediately. "Clara, we're filing for a permanent order of protection and guardianship finalization." "Isabel, the fraud case is over. A final guardianship won't be easy. The judge will want to see if Lillian has made any steps towards recovery or contact." "She hasn't," I said. "And we have irrefutable evidence of willful desertion tied to a serious, undisclosed medical condition that she concealed from the court and me. We have the pill count, the dosage, and the timeline. This proves that her leaving was not extensive business travel, but a planned permanent desertion. Clara, the sensible lawyer, actually swore under her breath. A pill bottle as an exhibit? Isabel, you have the most organized, brilliant grandson on the planet. Our final court appearance was 6 weeks later. It was just a quiet hearing. No press, no fanfare. We weren't there to fight. We were there to formalize the truth. I put the Ziploc bag, which I had kept, exactly as found in my Lillian baggage file, on the evidence table, next to Arian's official school IEP and his 470-baud text, IMDAR blue color chart. I didn't let Clara argue the case. I stood up and addressed the judge myself. Your Honor, I am 70 years old. I came here today not for vengeance, but for finality. 7 years ago, my daughter left my grandson. She did not leave him for a weekend. She left him permanently because she was experiencing a severe, undisclosed health crisis and knew she couldn't care for him. I presented the photo of the pill bottle, the remaining count, and the prescription date. Lillian Croft's actions were those of a person choosing to abandon her responsibilities and her own treatment. Her subsequent attempt to regain control was driven by greed, as proven by the fraudulent filings already withdrawn from this court. I looked at the judge, a tough-looking woman who had seen everything. Arian doesn't just need a stable home, Your Honor. He needs a legally impermeable home. He is a boy whose mind sees the world in perfect order. His mother represents chaos and dishonesty. We are asking for the court to finalize my sole guardianship and to grant a permanent no-contact order to eliminate the final variable that threatens his structured life. The judge stared at the evidence, then at Arian, who sat perfectly still, holding his yellow cup. She looked at the stark contrast between the messiness of the pill bottle and the perfect order of his life logs. Ms. Harper, the judge said finally, her voice soft but firm. Based on the uncontroverted evidence of fraudulent filings, the proven deceit regarding the child's care and the new, compelling evidence of willful desertion under extreme circumstances, the court finds that Ms. Lillian Croft is a clear and present danger to the stability and well-being of the minor, Arian Harper. She signed the order, sole and permanent guardianship to Isabel Harper, and the kicker, a lifetime restraining order barring Lillian Croft from contact or any financial claim related to Arian. It was the final, total revenge. Lillian didn't just lose the money and the job. She lost the right to ever be near her son again. I had protected Arian not just from her greed, but from her very presence. The system was now flawless. We walked out of the courtroom into the late afternoon sun. I put my arm around Arian. It's over, honey, I said, a deep sigh of relief escaping me. We're safe. Permanently safe. Arian looked at me, and for the first time there was a flicker of what I could only describe as profound peace in his eyes. Grandma, he said, his voice quiet. The dataset is now closed. The system is stable. He looked at me for a long moment, a proper, sustained glance, and then the ultimate compliment. A tiny, almost imperceptible upturn at the corner of his mouth. A logical smile. I had started this journey as a 70-year-old retired teacher, terrified and alone. I ended it as the immovable guardian of a multimillionaire tech prodigy, having orchestrated a perfectly legal, technically flawless takedown of my own daughter. Lillian taught me that abandonment is a weapon. Arian taught me that truth is just organized data. And me? I taught them both that when you come for a grandmother's family, you had better be prepared for a fight that is colder, cleaner, and far more systematic than you could ever imagine. My final chapter? It was a masterpiece of vengeance and logic. I wouldn't have it any other way.